Hi, Carol.
Hi, Ashish.
Welcome back to the Rich Equation podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited for this. Welcome back, firstly.
Thank you. It was really a great experience the first
The executive Lion Tamer here in our cage, ready to go. Firstly, I want to share that we've obviously already recorded with Carol before. We did a nice in-person episode. If you haven't heard it, go back to listen to her episode. But in the first episode, we talked a lot about sort of your background, what makes you so effective, some of the things leadership teams are going through, executives are going through, how we can deal with mindset, all that kind of stuff. So we're not going to talk about that today, because if you want to learn that, you can go back and listen to that, or you can look Carol up if you haven't already and learned. But one of the things that people need to know is I've known Carol for years, and I actually coach with Carol. She coaches a lot of people within my team, within our company. She's coached me personally. She's coached my wife. So I think today we're actually going to turn this session into a little bit of a coaching session as I ask questions to you and as we go through some of these topics. For all of the people that are listening to this podcast, whether you're out for a run or you're in your car, the disadvantage you have today is that you miss Carol's beautiful smile and her energy. You can't see that. But for all those people that are going to see this on YouTube, you will be able to, because we'll put it on a video. But just welcome to the podcast. Here we go.
Thank you. Let's go.
Yeah. How have you been? What have you been up to? It's been about a year and a half since we recorded the first time.
Oh,
how are you? Share with the audience a little bit.
So wonderful. Thank you. My kids teach me more every day than I ever thought I could learn. They make me want to become a better person. I don't see them that often anymore now that they're in school.
Yeah, you were just mentioning you hung out with your daughter today a little bit.
Yes. She surprised us and came over today just for one night. And we got a puppy since the last podcast.
Yes, I remember you telling me that too, like you're not busy enough.
Yeah, right. And that's been amazing. I have seen parts, I honestly have seen parts of my husband that I've never seen before.
That's so fun.
I fell in love with him all over again. I mean,
with him or your puppy?
Him. My puppy, I fell in love with at the, first sight. My husband, I guess too, but, married 24 years almost. And so, after a while, it's like a comfort level of love. And seeing him with Charlie's a girl, but seeing him with Charlie it just lights up my life and my heart. It's like a different person.
We coach. I've spent a lot of time with you talking about all aspects of my life. You've been there for the whole journey, and, relationship, spousal relationship, kid relationship is something that I spent a lot of time processing with you. One of the pillars of the Rich Equation is relationships, but you do such an amazing job of showing up as a mom and as a wife. And I really admire you for how you are in your family. But I think that the gifts in doing the podcast today and having you here is to kind of share with people some of the, you are, and we're going to talk about this in terms of everything else I want to talk about today in terms of mindset and strategy and the muck, what I'm talking about there. We'll talk about that in a minute. Mm-hmm. But you have some muscles that you've built over time. You've had these, you're able to be more consistent in some of your behaviors and the way you show up and how you're dealing with your family. So let's kind of start there, perhaps in relationships, kind of just because you started there.
Sure.
Let's talk about parenting. You coach me a lot through parenting too. Parenting is challenging. It's difficult. There are ups and downs. I think it's one of the hardest jobs that exists. What are the secrets to parenting, and what has worked for you and what hasn't worked for you?
Well, I don't know how PC this is going to be, Ashish.
It doesn't matter. This is not governed by any governing body, so we can talk about what the hell we want.
And let me just say that whatever I say, I have shared with my kids also. It was all very strategic with me because of the way I grew up with my parents. Kind of, me, the fifth of five girls, and it's like, whatever. Is Carol here today? No. Oh, I wonder where she. Like, whatever. Oh, she's eating dirt. Whatever, right? And so, because I grew up with very hands-on, micromanaging parents in one aspect. Mm-hmm. But then very hands off when it comes to education and like,
they'll figure it out.
Yeah. And you don't need to have that higher education. That's not, something that's important. And so the way that showed up was me now wanting it more. I need that higher education more because you're saying no to me. Mm-hmm. And so now it becomes a challenge, right? And when the kids were little, I remember that Rich, my husband, grew up in a totally different household. His parents are from Egypt, very strict in a very different way as well. And when my kids were growing up, and I remember them saying, "Hey, Mom, can you help us with the homework?" And I'm like, well, are there general questions? Because you have to figure this out. I know it's terrible, but you're the CEO of your own life. And this is like when they were like 6 or 7. And I'm like, you've got to figure this out. Why don't you try to tell me how it's done? And as we went through, my son, I remember that there was a point where my son was just getting bored in school. He was so bored. And so he would start doing other things, and you know what happens, right? It's like, oh, his grades are not the best. And so I remember having that conversation with him where I said, look, and this is what I said to my daughter too. I said, I'm going to love you if you're homeless. I'm going to love you if you are the richest person on earth. I'm going to love you if you have a mansion. I'm going to love you if you live on the street. If you live on the street, I'll take you sandwiches whenever I can. But the truth of the matter is, I have nothing to do with that. It's all you. Because one choice leads to another choice, leads to another choice. And I can't make those choices for you. You have to decide. And like I said, my love will be there no matter what. So then you just decide. And so whenever they said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do my homework. I don't want to go to school. I'm like, okay. What's the worst that'll happen? You'll be homeless. And we went to a homeless shelter where they fed, the folks, and they really saw how they live. And right. So it's like really prominent. And so every choice, it's like, well, I don't want to do this. Okay. You don't want to go to school.
At what age did you start really pushing this?
Oh, as young as young as they can understand it.
Yeah. Like 5, 6, 7.
Yeah. And then they've got to know that you're the soft place to fall and that no one's coming for them. They have to decide what they want in their life. And I will support them. They want to drop out of school. I had this conversation with my son before he just blew it out of the water the opposite way. But I literally said to him, listen, I will support you if you in the decisions you make. If you don't want to go to school anymore, cool.
But is that a reverse psychology strategy, or are you meaning that authentically, that like you would support him if he dropped out of school because he believed that he was doing the right thing for him?
So what I mentioned to him was, it wasn't so much reverse psychology, but it kind of worked that way. It worked the same way because it was also true. But what I also mentioned was I wasn't going to support him financially. So right. I will support his decisions. I will support everything he wants to do. Every good decision, every bad. Now, if he asks me for advice, I'm there. But I'm not going to give you advice unless you ask me for it. So what that did was it scared him to death.
Right.
And he ended up graduating. He ended up doing so well that he graduated second in his class with a 4.7 GPA. and a whole bunch of offers to go to a whole bunch of schools. And it's like he's so driven. He's so driven, but he always knew he had a choice. And I think that's what it's about, Ashish.
Right.
You always have a choice. And the CEOs that are feeling like they're in some sort of golden handcuffs or a prison, or, it's like, how do I inspire people when I'm so burnt out myself, when I'm not feeling it? We have to help them identify where the choices are that they have, because once we create a choice, it then allows us to not be a victim, and to kind of reduce the threat of autonomy being taken away and uncertainty. We reduce the threat because now we have a choice.
So one of the things, and I've processed this with you too, about, because I have a couple of toddlers, and you can give them choices, but at that age, they don't quite know what choices they should make. But also, we talk a lot about boundaries. So tell me about how you think about boundaries with them, maybe at an earlier age, or even now. Yours a little bit older now. Do the boundaries become lighter over time? Were you one that had pretty strict or strong boundaries? Because I think what's interesting now in today's parenting strategies is like, there's a whole movement of people that are just like, well, let's just let the kids do what they want. We're not going to have discipline. I think all parents now even think that there's something bad about being an authoritarian as a parent. And so we've overcorrected to be like our kid's best friend and super nice. And I shouldn't create boundaries. So like maybe there's a little bit of overcorrection. So just from your perspective or your experience, like what do you see worked for you, and any guidance?
Yes. So in terms of the boundaries and the overcorrection, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
The thing about it for me, I mean, my childhood colored my whole world in terms of how I am as an adult. The more they said no to me, the more I did it. It's like, you can't go sleep over, you can't have a sleepover at your friend's house. So it's like, how am I going to make that happen? Right?
Oh, I see. You mean you as a kid?
Me as a kid.
Right. So the more you heard no, the more it enabled you to want to do it.
Exactly. And it worked for me in various ways. I mean, I ended up going to college because of that. I ended up going to, being in several different things because they said, no. But it was a dysfunctional way of going around it for me, right? I mean, I could have done things a little bit better here. But when I had my kids, I thought, especially my daughter, not only is she like me, but she is a Capricorn also, so very stubborn also. I knew that if I said no, it would just be a challenge. And I didn't want her to be that girl that would dress appropriately at home and then have the short shorts in the backpack and all of that, right? And I realized I can't be with them every day to see what is actually happening. So I have to, from a very young age, teach them that their decisions are going to create a consequence from a very young age, right? So if you give them choices, even, you're right, they don't know what choices are the right choices when they're younger. So you start with age-appropriate choices. You don't want to go to sleep, honey? I totally get it. I don't want to go to sleep either, but I'll tell you what, you decide, do you want to read a book or do you want me to read the book? And so you're not really giving them a choice as to whether or not you're going to bed. You're going to bed.
Pivot to another choice.
Yes. And so now what's happening is that now your brain or their brain is shifting towards a response instead of away from a response.
Right.
That's the trick. So yeah, we had boundaries. I absolutely had boundaries. But with the boundaries, I also said, and if you do something contrary to that, just understand the consequences to your life, because my life isn't going to change.
I want you to tell me how you were able to successfully build productive citizens as kids and creating boundaries and a healthy mindset, but also you have an incredible connection with them, like an authentic, deep relationship and connection. You're able to accomplish both. And so what do you attest that to? Your kids now are like your friends. And I think that's sort of the relationship that most people want. We'll talk about your spousal relationship here as well, because I think that's super important. And you help me with mine all the time. You know how to keep it spicy, girl. That's for sure. But tell me about the kids and how you were able to successfully build like real deep connection with them. I think it's every parent's dream to have that. And I think it's also every kid's dream to have that, to have really authentic, deep, honest connection with their parents. So tell me that.
Yeah, of course. The honest piece was the most important part to me. So I wanted them to feel that whatever they ended up doing, whatever choice they made, I was going to support. So I'll answer this question by first starting to tell you, when my daughter was, I want to say 6th grade, it was either 5th or 6th grade. I was traveling a lot. And so our connections had to be very deep and very connected when we were together. And then when I was away, I had to connect with them. Anyway, one day I'm in Colorado and I get a call from my daughter. We gave them these little ways to call us. So I think at that point she had like one of those minimal cell phones or whatever, but she called me and she said, "Hey mom, I just want to let you know that my friend has cigarettes and in 5th or 6th grade. And she asked me if I want to go smoke with her." And I wasn't really sure what to do because I like her. I don't want to lose her as a friend. And so here's a great example, right? So I said to her, "Honey, here's the thing. So if you think about your life, right now, you're how old? 5, 6 years old, right? And they do understand. I mean, at 5, 6 years old, they understand this kind of level of communication. If you think about, where she's going to be when you are 50, 60, 70, right? And whatever you've done to your body today shows up in your body later, right? Like it will affect you later. If you think about that, then what decision would you make, right? And do you know for sure that she would not be your friend if you didn't do that, right? And she said, "Well, no, but I'm scared." And I said, "Okay, well, what do you want to do?" Right? So that's the key. It's not, no, do not do that. Walk away, navigate. No, it's, honey, what do you want to do?
You know what's interesting as you say that is like my kids are, sorry to interrupt you, but like I think this is, I need, again, this is going to become a coaching call. It's like, I have 2 girls and my older one is really into clothes. And I think maybe we've talked about this. Mm-hmm. She's really into clothes. She's really into like braiding her hair. I mean, she's girly. She's just a girly girl. She loves dresses and all that. And our fear, because my wife and I are pretty conservative. We don't really talk about clothes and makeup and jewelry and all that often. But like, we just are so fearful of our kids becoming vain and like looking at themselves in the mirror all the time and like, doing things. And she's at an age and it's a little bit of her personality that she like sees what other people are wearing and she'll quickly comment on like, "Wow, I love your shoes," and like, we don't know where that comes from, but like, she just does that. And so, we're so fearful. It's kind of funny what happens is that we're so fearful of her vanity in this topic or this subject matter. We try to overcorrect and it just enables her to do more, right? It's like what you resist persists.
Yeah.
So any thoughts on that?
My daughter was the same.
Yeah. So what do? You just kind of like let her do it? Like let her put those things, put importance to those things?
Here's the thing, right? She is communicating with you the things that bring her passion, the things that she likes to talk about, the things that make an impact on her. If it's just your shoes, that's important to her. That at that moment, right? She's telling you that's cool. And
it's a girl dad moment here, everybody.
Yeah. She's communicating with you.
Right.
And so look, there are some things that I would absolutely say, please do not. Like if they start doing something or saying something that is not within your value system.
Sure. Right.
Totally different conversation.
Yeah.
But nothing is talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No, nothing is breaking values, but you're right. It's like, it's not necessarily values. It's like, what are the traditions that you want to teach her and things like that. And I think it's a little bit of old programming that's coming through with both of us too. Right. So yeah.
There's something in our mind when we're thinking, oh, that might make her shallow. Oh, that might make her vain. Oh, she might be focusing on the wrong things. Look, I had the same thoughts.
Yes.
Our minds. But we're attributing that to something that doesn't exist. All she's doing is sharing with you what she likes. This is something that's important to her. To this day, Hannah dresses to the nines because to her, that's important. And that actually made her think of getting into interior design. It was like fashion, nah, not so much. I mean, I like it. It's important, but interior decoration, no, that's too shallow. I want to get into construction, interior design, because the aesthetics, the way things look, matter to me so much.
And she has a natural instinct and eye for it. And right. So it's sort of this natural personality that's evolving, that has an eye for things that perhaps it's not about vanity or how she looks or how she feels, but there's like this natural personality characteristic skill set that's being evolved here. And we can equally suppress it. Fascinating.
Yeah. And I use that to my advantage. I don't have those skill sets.
Right.
I have her dress me. I have her tell me what looks good, what doesn't look good. I don't care.
Let's talk about relationships, because one of the things I'm working with you on right now is we always talk about being present, and you're really great at this about in your marriage, creating really engaging relationship with your spouse. And one of the things we're struggling with, we're working through right now, and I think everybody struggles with this, is being present. And what we're talking about now is not just about being present, but really being engaged and interactive and playful. I think being present is no longer the bar. It's like you have to be past the bar of being present. And sometimes being present is just like being there, right? Being there and listening. Like I'm kind of experiencing this right now, where my wife is showing up in a really beautiful way in our relationship and our date nights. She's being more curious. She's being more active in our engagement. She's planning things. And so I can now see myself reflecting back like, wow, I'm not engaging. I'm not reciprocating that level of engagement or that level of depth or curiosity or, playfulness. Right. And so you help me through that. Tell me how you keep that alive. You keep it spicy. You have a really great fresh perspective, and it's fun, a man and a woman talking about this too, rather than guys just talking about it or just girls talking about it. So
yeah,
tell me kind of how you think about this. And also, and we were talking about age earlier a couple weeks ago too. Tell me how that evolves over time.
The relationship through when you're getting older?
Yeah, like does the mindset or the thinking evolve over time too? Because I think like we're just passing 10 years and, we're doing a really good job of feeling like it's like, okay, how do we create a whole new relationship now? How do we go back to zero? And how do we relearn? And how do we forget about some old baggage? And because I think that's the stuff that gets people stuck. It's like, okay, well, let's forget about everything. Let's kind of start all over. But in the beginning, it's like la la land, right?
Yeah.
And so it's easy to have fun and be playful and be innocent and all that. But then as you get, each other over a longer period of time, you have old patterns, you have old resentments, you have maybe past hurts. And so to be lighthearted and playful and all that all the time may be a limiting belief. And I think you do a really great job of working past that. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think you do a really magical job of this.
Oh,
I don't know why I kept my hand up so long. Sorry.
I don't know. And you were kind of,
I was really into it. Sorry.
It's interesting that we trade in that la la land, that excitement, that feeling of something new. We trade it in for something more substantial and comfortable and something that is going to stand the test of time. The challenge is that our brain wants that serotonin. It wants that dopamine. And that's where, as marriage, in a partnership, you have to acknowledge that. You can't pretend that, the status quo is going to be great all the time. That's why there's so many divorces, because nobody has those conversations. They're too afraid to have those conversations. And then they end up either cheating or leaving the person or whatever it is. Right. And so when somebody else showed me like, oh yeah, oh my God, I'm attractive to this, to this, what? Right. And so I realized I was not taking care of me.
Yeah.
And I stopped taking care of the relationship in the way that I needed to. And when that little hit of like dopamine or whatever happened in my brain hit me, it was like, oh, yes, right. This is so exciting. And then, I thought about, okay, well, what if my husband leaves like the next day? What if I lose him? It's everything I've ever wanted in a man. I mean, for this hit of dopamine, right? And so I needed to say that to him. He's an engineer. He's very practical. He is like, if we did the same thing every single day,
he'd be so happy.
Fine. Yes. And I'm not like that. And that's where the challenge is. Right. And so you have to learn where you're going to get that hit within your value system. That's where the challenge is. That's where it becomes very creative. You have to get creative.
Yeah, we talk a lot about change and curiosity. And I think all people need to change. Some people change or want change, let's say, at a different pace, at a different frequency than most. Mm-hmm. You strike me as somebody who needs change often. I'm sort of that way too.
Mm-hmm. And we marry who? We marry the people that are stable and supportive and wonderful.
Isn't that funny? It's such
Yeah, and that's what makes it work though, right? Because we fill each other's gaps, but that's also what could derail us.
I think it allows people to derail them easier. You're easier to get right because you don't find the gift in that. You're just like, ugh, you're not changing, or you change too often. You're just exhausting me. You don't know what you want, and it right on the opposite side. Yeah, really, really fun. But you're such a great example, and I lean on you a lot for all of these topics. Anything else on relationships before we pivot to some other stuff?
I know. I just think, it's okay to be comfortable in a relationship. That's what you want. You just have to make sure that you understand the other person's currency and what they need, and give them the freedom to express that so that they don't feel judged, because it's just like your kids, right? If the minute that they feel judged, they're going to start holding things from you. And so allow that expression to be without judgment and see where it takes you. And again, within your value system. And so that's what's the most important thing, because if we were to lose the people that make us who we are, that give us the life that we have, that create this comfort in us, then our life would be much worse. And so we've got to nurture that just like a plant, because whatever's not growing is dying, including the relationship. If we're not growing, we're dying. There's no, there's no misconception about that. So you have to keep asking yourself, are we growing as a couple? Because otherwise we're sliding backwards.
Yep. That's a universal law. I think we talk a lot about work-life balance. I don't know if that necessarily exists. I'd love your perspective about this, because we're going to now pivot to some things that have to do with leadership and how to deal with leadership. And I know you work with a lot of executives about this, but one of the things that I'm personally going through is a lot of change and a lot of shifts and a lot of big changes, right? And as an entrepreneur, and we talked a little bit about this, that like different people need different rates of change, and I really need change in my life to feel stimulated, to feel fulfilled, to feel energized. Part of why I have the podcast, because I get different ideas and I get to be more often be curious and asking questions and challenge frameworks. Mm-hmm. And that's not for everyone, but like I suffer when that's not happening. But the interesting thing about that is, as you're going through the changes that your heart and even your mind wants, you create a lot of problems. Your mind is creating a lot of problems. Maybe I said that incorrectly. Your heart or perhaps you create these desires, but your mind creates a lot of these problems along the way, right? And I mean, we can talk very specifically, like we're looking at some really big business shifts, between the podcast and my core business. Like so many things are evolving into like next phase, like what's next now, right? But as you're kind of working those things out, you're moving from what's comfortable to what's exceptional. Mm-hmm. And what you used to think was exceptional is now what's your comfortable. Mm-hmm. It's like you've evolved to that next level. Mm-hmm. And so, but that process, as you keep up leveling, you can build resilience where you're getting better at it, but it also still feels uncomfortable and you feel mucky and you feel like you're in some void or sludge. And it can also revert you back like, oh, wow, this is too difficult, or there's too many obstacles here, or I don't know if I can get this done, or I don't know if there's going to be, internal dialogue about this. I'm going long-winded here, but you kind of know where I'm going. And then what happens is that trickles into multiple aspects of our life, right? Mm-hmm. It may trickle into business-wise being indecisive. It may trickle into our personal life being distracted. Mm-hmm. Or not present. Let's kind of unpack this. Because mm-hmm. Again, for me, I think this is a big topic that we keep coming back to. And even though we intellectually understand it, it's like a natural behavior of our mind and our body and our ego. So let's kind of unpack this. Yeah,
I think that, we've been taught somehow, I don't know, maybe intravenously at some point in our lives, somebody injected us with something that says that joy or happiness is a destination. And when we go through these things, we will achieve this destination, we will be at this destination, and we are no longer going to have to go through the muck. But that's not how it works unless we're underground, because as we're evolving as human beings, right? As we're evolving as human beings, things will change. And so whatever is external that changes always has an internal transition, the psychological piece. And that psychological piece is really 3 different phases. So you talked about the comfortable and the exceptional. So the comfortable, you're on solid ground. We were talking about this earlier. You're on solid ground. It's the ending. It's where you are now. The exceptional is also solid ground. You have made your way to the exceptional. You've done whatever you needed to do to get to the exceptional, right? You are standing on a firm foundation. The challenge is that with every change in your life, every change, this is a new kid, a new boss, a new adventure, a new system, a new CRM, every change, you have between the ending and the new beginning, the comfortable and the exceptional, which is how you said it, which I love. You have this space of uncertainty. Mm-hmm. It's almost like the trapeze artist. holding on, then you're up in the air and you're like, right? Am I going to land? Am I not going to land? What's going to happen? Where's the thing? I hope it's there.
That was a really good example.
Oh, good. Thank you. And then you grab it and you're like, phew.
Yeah, because my stomach just fell, because that's what it feels like. You feel like you're in midair with your stomach dropping, not knowing if you're going to catch the other trapeze. That's a really good example.
That's how it feels. And at the same time, it feels like you are in a place where there is, there's no certainty of any kind, because you don't know what this exceptional looks like. You can imagine it, you can envision it, but still, we're not exactly sure what that's going to look like. And so when we are getting through from the ending to the new beginning, now you can get through it really quickly in hours. If you can't wait, like let's take a divorce, for instance. Let's say somebody wants to divorce their partner so badly, right? They've moved on. They have, them and their partner haven't talked for years. They've moved on psychologically, and now they're getting a divorce. Well, their partner is not there psychologically. They had no idea that this was coming. They thought everything was great. So when they spring on I want to get a divorce, the person that wants to get a divorce is already at the new beginning. They're like, they're going to get, I can't wait, right? That's what my new life is going to look like. The person that didn't even see it coming is not only at the ending of what it used to be or what it is now, but as they get through into the swampy area, into that trapeze area, things can get very bad, because that uncertainty of what life is without that person, who they are without that identity, there's a lot of stuff that can derail us, and it can make us do things that are not our best self.
Mm-hmm.
The important thing about this is that they're traveling at different speeds psychologically. And so while the change has happened, let's say that the divorce papers have been signed. It's happened. This person can either stay in the ending, in the way it used to be, and just keep holding on and maybe try to make life really miserable for the other person, right? And they just become really bitter and sour. Or they can go through the uncomfortableness that is going to take them to their new life and get to their new life. But either way, they're traveling at different speeds psychologically through those three phases.
Well, what I noticed is it's really important, because I was suffering through, I hate being in the swamp. I was judging myself, being super critical. And now I feel like, okay, as long as I acknowledge I'm in the swamp, I know where I am in the process. And not that I necessarily appreciate it, but I can appreciate that I'm just in this phase of the process, that this too shall pass, and I'll get on solid ground at some point if I continue to do the work, right? You have to continue to do the work. But yeah, that framework really helped me. I hate it, but in reality, it's part of the process. And I think that's why it's important to have routines and discipline and the right people around you to keep you moving, sludging through the swamp.
Yeah. And it's going to keep happening, right? For everything that changes in your life, when your kids grow up and when they leave for college, if they leave for college, when they get married, right? Everything has those three phases, every single thing. So while you're in the ending in one and maybe in the beginning in another, you're in the swamp in another. So you have to just get excited about the fact that you're in such a crappy place, because what that means is that you're closer to the new beginning. You just have to keep getting over there. You have to look for that bar. You have to look for the land. But it's exciting because you've left the what is. You've left the ending. So that's good.
Right. What are you seeing that, and I think I may have asked you this last time, but maybe there's some trending that you're seeing now. What are you seeing that executives or leaders are facing and dealing with right now? And is that changing? And are there any trends that are interesting going on right now?
I think that there is a trend, at least from my perspective and my
Sure.
lens with my clients. People are exhausted.
And from what?
They're exhausted from, how do I put this? The world is so different.
Right.
Than it used to be. And it continues to change. And there are landmines everywhere you go. With everything you say and with everything you do, your life could be turned upside down like that. And it's not easy.
Are we saying how sensitive the world is becoming? And like, what do you mean specifically? Yeah.
I think that's part of it. It's, it's like if you smile at someone, you made me feel uncomfortable. If you don't smile at someone, they obviously have something against me. And it's this ever-changing landscape of, what can I say? What's the right word? How did I offend that person? I don't even know. That's what they're struggling with, and it's burning them out. And right. It's just hard because all we need in today's world is for somebody to say, oh, you did this. I feel uncomfortable. You made me feel uncomfortable, and you're done like that. And what
advice you have for people that are dealing with that?
So number one is, let's separate facts from whatever our perception of reality is, because that's all it is, right? So let's separate the actual facts. If you were in a courtroom, what facts could you actually submit as facts? And understand that everyone is looking at the same situation with totally different lenses and with a totally different mindset. Mm-hmm. And by mindset, I mean frequency. Right? So, if you're at this frequency, you're going to attract this frequency stuff, right? And if you are at this frequency, you're looking for low-level things. You're trying to create low-level things because that's the only thing that can get through and that you can attract.
Right. That's the vibration you're at.
It's the vibration you're at, right? You can only attract what you're in harmony with. So if you're looking for problems, if you're looking to be a victim, you're going to find that.
You're going to find them. Right. 100%. Totally right. Yep.
So remember that although that might be happening in today's world quite a bit, that we still have the ability to make choices around how we're going to deal with it. And we're not stuck. We aren't in a place where we have to just take it. We do have facts. We can rely on them. And we do have choices.
But we can only control what we can control.
Yeah.
Right? We can only control our energy, how we show up. I guess what you're saying is facts are facts, but like the way we show up, the way we control our energy, the way we influence our energy, what we allow into our energy is really all we can control right now as executives, as leaders. And it is becoming increasingly challenging. Yeah. We're not a huge company, but we're also not small. And so I just can't imagine how it is to manage, 100,000 employees right now or 10,000 employees right now. The challenges that some of these leaders have. I'm really interested in hearing your perspective. There was a conversation going on about executives using their full facilities. And what I mean by this is kind of what we were just talking about is CEOs, executives have a lot of authority, a ton of authority, really. I mean, they can basically do whatever they want besides doing something illegal. But there's a lot of fear in doing things and making good business decisions because of maybe retaliation from shareholders or employees or even customers. And so they give up this facility. And a really good example of this is, and we'll kind of make it more real for everybody, is like, Elon Musk bought Twitter. Mm-hmm. The way that he used his facility as a CEO was incredibly highly criticized, right? And again, it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. It's like he used full authority as the CEO. He didn't care what people thought as shareholders or as employees, to take control of the company and to do what it was necessary to stabilize the business, which is ultimately the responsibility of the CEO or the leader or the executive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of businesses out there where leaders don't use their full facility because they're afraid, and they have so many other influence. And let's assume, I mean, what advice you have for people like this? What do you think is going on? Why do you think executives are sort of putting themselves in this position? And, you know, I feel like it in this position sometimes, but then when I come back to my senses and I realize, okay, wait, it's my responsibility to make these decisions, it becomes a little bit easier. It's not my job to make everybody happy. It's my job to make the good, best, hardest decisions for the company so that we survive. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice is surround yourself with people that can give you the different perspectives and that can help you navigate that, because you're right. It is your responsibility. And ultimately, if it fails because of your fear as a CEO, because we couldn't tell Sally that, you know, we needed to part ways, and then she ended up destroying, like, you know, what we built, that's a problem.
Right.
And so the first thing is, look at the people you're surrounding yourself with. Make sure that you surround yourself with people that you trust, that can help you get to wherever you want to be. And then have also, you know, on top of that, have some people that understand the law that can help navigate those landmines so that you can still make it happen. Because if your fear is holding you back, there's nothing stronger than that.
Yeah. And it's really easy, just to add to that, it's really easy for people of high authority in companies to hire people that enable their behavior.
Yeah, that's what happens most of the time. That's the challenge, right? We want people to assert that we're correct in being afraid.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. Right. And that's the biggest thing. Now back to the biggest thing that I see. I think that I'm seeing a lot, and it's unfortunate because it's easy to live in your fear. It's easy to not take action. It's easy to, not do the hard thing, but it takes a lot more effort, more energy to really do the right thing in spite of the fact that we also have to take care of this, right? I mean, we have to take care of the situation. Let's make sure that we do the pre-work so that we don't have a situation or that it's minimal. If there's going to be a situation, there's going to be a situation, but let's minimize it as much as possible. And always weigh, the pros and the cons, and then set yourself up for success. And, it's like in Jewish weddings, right? In Jewish weddings, we have this huge celebration, and then we always break the glass, right? We always step on the glass to commemorate that there is no wonderful goodness, all good rainbows and unicorns without there also being something that isn't perfect. Now, it's commemorate the destruction of the second temple, but the meaning behind that is that even in the most beautiful of times, we have to remember that nothing is ever perfect. And so to embrace that as part of the perfection, if you will, or the lack of perfection, or the life, right? But it's to embrace it. And so we can't make decisions based on, if we're not going to ruffle any feathers. No. Okay, if we ruffle feathers, how can we minimize that if this is the best thing for the business?
Yeah, it's really funny. Like, just because you're making difficult decisions doesn't mean you're intentionally trying to ruffle feathers. It's just people are really sensitive because the impact of decisions now becomes so loud. Yeah. Like, people have such louder voices, and social media and the news and all these things allow people to have this. I think that it it was kind of funny. There was like an article about how like 60% of all Google employees wrote some petition about like the name of a company that they were going to launch and thought that it was like improper, unprofessional. So like the fear that's coming, the feedback that's coming from employees is so aggressive now that it's much harder to make decisions and to move forward, and who am I going to offend, or who's going to be disrupted. And so it's just an interesting time in the way, and I don't think this is going away.
Not anytime soon anyways. And that's why I think you need to surround yourself with people that it's not that can be in your echo chamber and that can tell you, like you said, like, oh yes, everything you do is great. No, but surround yourself with people that you really trust and that can help elevate you out of the situations and give you great advice. Do you think
these things will normalize? Do you think these things will normalize, or you think we're here to these things are here to stay?
I think that this whole victim mentality that is happening right now to get attention and to, and taking away actual, I don't know what's the word, but the real victims. It's not fair to the real victims, right? So the people that have that victim mentality are so overdoing it that I think it has to shift, Ashish. I think it has to shift. When? I don't know. It has to. Yeah, I think perhaps we've overcorrected. Yes.
Society has allowed it. And I think that it has to normalize again, because I think you're right. We're doing a disservice to the people that are really challenged and have real disadvantages and are really suffering.
Yes.
Because we're creating all this like first world suffering. That is, it's all noise. Yeah, it's all noise.
And it's so that I can feel like a hero if I called you out for doing something wrong, because I'm using my voice as a woman, or I'm using my voice as, take your pick. I'm a Mexican, Iraqi Jew. It's also,
you're low hanging fruit. You're easy target.
Right. And so like I can assert anything I want, and then it's like ruin somebody's life. Right. It's like that. It's not okay. But in today's world, that is what's happening. And I think that it has to correct back. Like you said, we've overcorrected. I think we have to get back to a little bit towards the middle again.
What are you learning right now? What are you reading? Where are you getting sort of inspiration?
Thanks for asking. I am reading, so there's one book that I'm reading called Ikigai.
Oh yeah. Tell us about what Ikigai is.
Yeah. So it's basically, it's almost like your passion, right? Like where all of your different parts of you intersect. And it's your passion, your why. And I don't think I'm doing it justice because I'm still reading it, but it's really good. And it's a really easy read.
Yeah.
I'm also reading a lot of neurology books and keeping, like what happens to your brain at work, what happens when you are overcommitting, like the neurology of all of that. That's really interesting to me, because that's how we make change and behavior change. And then I'm reading another one called, I think it's Just Joy, with the Dalai Lama.
Oh yeah, I've seen that's come across my feed.
Okay.
How is it?
It's good. It's good. Yeah, but I get bored easily, so I have to read a whole bunch of different books.
I'm the same way. I need to be jumping from book to book for a while. I can't power through one book. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So those are the main ones right now.
What are you working on yourself? I feel like you are invincible. You're like Superwoman. And I don't mean that to compliment you. I really believe that. And I'm sure you're really kind. Don't give me some canned bullshit answer. Like, oh, I'm really kind to myself and I'm patient. Like, what are you really working through right now in yourself? Where's the new devil in your new level?
Oh, I love it. Very personal. I am working through this weight gain. I've gained a ton of weight, And it's interesting because it used to be, we were talking about age. It used to be that I would go on like a vacation and like, whatever, give me another margarita, give me, whatever. And then I'd lose it within 2 weeks.
Right.
And now that's not happening. So I'm really struggling. It is a mindset issue because some days I wake up and I jolt out of bed and I go work out and I'm on it that whole day.
And you mobilize.
Some days, yeah. And so I'm just learning to keep getting back up and keep getting back up and keep getting back up because I'm not staying where I need to stay for longer than 2 or 3 days in order to actually make a difference. And I'm hurting myself.
Yeah, I'm not going to make any excuses, but man, like I watched this thing called Limitless with Lee, I think something Hemsworth, I forget his first name. He plays Thor, and he has this episode it's on Apple, I think it's on Disney Plus, sorry. And he talks about aging. And I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. I just turned 37 and I feel some symptoms of aging, and I'm like super hard on myself. And I'm like, oh man, why am I not healing fast enough? Or why does this ache? Or why can't I jump and jolt out of bed every day? Why is it like every other day or every third day? So it's just fascinating how I'm really learning more about the impacts of age on our body and how we can deal with it. I think high performers kind of struggle with this. It's sort of one of my swamp issues because I expect my body, like you probably do, you expect your body to be resilient and do what you want it to do when you want it to do it. And we're not 21 little spring chickens anymore, and there's something to be grateful. But one of the things that, maybe you can speak to this, one of the things that he really talks about is like being grateful for the age that you're at, not being like, oh man, what's wrong with me? I wish I was 21. Like, it's just like appreciating and giving. It's kind of like Ikigai in that way a little bit, but giving sort of grace and appreciation to the age that we're at. And because it's a special age too. There's like a gift in that age also.
There is. I think in my 50s now I don't give a damn about a lot of things that I did used to give a damn about. And it was mostly external, like, oh, if I do this, what will my clients think? Oh, if I say that, what will and now I just don't care. And there's an authenticity to being in your 50s that I feel like I was working towards it. Like I always felt like I was being authentic, but looking back, I wasn't that authentic because I wasn't able to say what I really thought. And now it's like, yeah, you know what? Look, I have gray under here. Look, there's gray, and it's like, right? And it's like, I love my hats, but I have gray. And it's like, I
have some grays too. Don't worry.
Yeah, but you're a guy, so looks good on you. But it's that I'm okay with it, right? Like I can let it be as much as I want it to be. But there is definitely something to that, Ashish. There's a magical place about, it's magical being in your 50s, and I'm sure 60s will be even better. But then there's the opposite side where right now I'm struggling with a sprained ankle because I literally did nothing except walk from one place to another. My ankle just went, oh yeah,
Pop.
not doing that.
What else is showing up for you?
I don't know. I think I want to get back to the simple things again. I want to get back to what's important and not lose sight of that.
Yeah.
And almost have a reminder every single day to do something that is different than what I always do. And I think that that's what's going to feed my desire to get better with the thing I'm struggling with. So
you're that for me.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're that for me. The getting present, feeling into your senses, doing something new and exciting. Like, what would Carol do?
I just said that to my sister Nora. I said, what would Nora do?
Yeah, it's important to have people in your life, whether they know it or not, that are inspiring you to just like work through some of that stuff, right?
Yeah. Honestly, yes.
I guess as we wrap up, I want to ask you a final question for you, Carol. Well, firstly, thanks for doing this again. This is always fun. It's always a pleasure and honor to have you. You've been such an important pillar in our life, in the business, in our personal life, and helping so many people. And you just have like this spark about you that I think everybody loves. And it's really magic. You're gifted with that for sure. But for you, what does it mean to live a rich life?
Is not losing sight that money is not what the rich life is about. It's actually, the thing that being able to see, we were talking about that. It's, just that alone. But not only can I see, I can actually hear you. I can actually hug you if I see you. I can do all these things, that even laugh, right? I mean, sometimes I just laugh for no reason. And the ability to do that, just so it makes my life rich, and to make other people laugh. And, I think that's the rich life, is in being content. So we have to just remember that, because you and I are like, what's next? We need a change. And so I think that that's the rich life.
Yeah, just appreciate life with your senses and be engaged in that experience.
Yeah, be content with my lovely body, and look at like even that, right? It's like,
yeah,
I gained weight, but you know what? That's okay. Like, I still love my body,
Yeah.
It's all good.
And this too shall pass.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it. Thanks so much, darling. So good to see you. We'll have to do it again, as always.
I love it. It's always wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you
Thanks so much.
All right.